Question number 1. Is there anything that your God has done, said, or wanted that you disagree with? I mean primarily in the Bible. Because if you read that book, you realize God did, said, and wanted a whole lot of horrible things. The Great Flood being the first really big bad one. That was in the first book of the Bible. They really couldn't wait to get right to the genocide, could they? So if you approve of the Great Flood, you got to say, I agree with that, with what God did. Okay. If you agree with that horrible, horrible act, what does that say about you? It already said something horrible about your God. The Great Flood potentially killed millions of human beings. And I would say that they were innocent. Sin still exists after the Great Flood. And if you read the Bible, a great deal of sin existed right after and for years after the Great Flood. So why was there a flood? God wanted to erase from earth all of the wicked, sinning people? Well, he didn't see the future, that's for sure. In his own book, just pages after, there are people who act in much the same way, if not worse. But I went into Genesis and tried to find out exactly why all the people who got flooded in the Great Flood deserved to drown to death. And it really was kind of vague about that. And very quick, very brief. It said they were doing wicked things. Now, since then, a lot of wicked things have been done by a lot of wicked people, right? So the Great Flood really wasn't necessary. I can't agree with that. God did a terrible, terrible thing in the Bible, if you believe that sort of thing. But the God character acted in a very evil manner and killed a lot of innocent people, including babies. And drowning is a horrible way to die. I don't agree with that, and I didn't when I was a Christian either. But I still find Christians who say, in fact most Christians say, and they have to say, it was okay and it was a good thing that God drowned all of those people and all those animals. And then I have to remind them that includes all the plant life and the marine life. They don't want to hear about that. Good. They're good people. Good people saddled with a bad story. So if you don't agree with some of that, okay, and you're asking a Christian, if you don't agree with something your God did, said, or wanted, like in the Bible or wherever else, then you yourself are a questioner, right? A skeptic. A person who knows better than God on a particular instance, like when the Great Flood happened. You wouldn't have done that, would you? I wouldn't have either. Of course not. That's because we're compassionate human beings, and God is an evil tyrant. But really, it's just a reflection of evil that other human beings have done, don't you think? They're just looking at what humans do and shaping God's after that. It's anthropomorphic all the way, taking human attributes and applying them to something in nature, even a God, if they feel that God is part of nature. And suddenly God is acting like a 3-year-old with way too much power, way too much anger and paranoia issues that it needs to work out. But we humans are responsible for that, and we're supposed to love the guy. Worst of all, this is a terrible, terrible egomaniac, a megalomaniac, a terrible killer of innocent people. I can't agree with that. But continually, every day, I find Christians who say that God never did anything wrong. Even in the Bible. The Great Flood, the terrible things he did to Job. Well, that was horrible, and it was on a dare. So if you agree with everything that God did, said, and wanted, you'll agree to pretty much anything that you're instructed, because that's all that the Bible is somebody telling you what to believe in the form of a book that people wrote. And they bring it to you, and they spoon feed you these ideas. And so if you're a Christian who believes and loves everything that God did, then you're just following. You're a sheep. You're just going along, a robot. You lost thought. Independent thought just doesn't matter to you. And many people were raised that way. It's truly sad, but I encourage you to read the Bible. Read the terrible things that your precious, loving God did. If you don't agree with something your God did, said, or wanted on a particular occasion, whatever it was, if you don't agree with it for whatever reason, you're a skeptic, you're a thinker, you're judging that God to be mistaken, and you're right. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to judge people. Jesus was totally wrong when he said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." That's foolishness. We all have to make judgments every single day in order to just function in a society. In order to leave your home, you have to make judgments about people driving down the road. What are they going to do next? You don't know. You got to judge. You got to predict. And you don't know these people. But judging is okay. Same thing with personal relationships. You go to meet people, you go to work for people, you go to interact with people. You have to make judgments about them, their attitude, their future actions, the situation around you, and yourself. You have to judge yourself too. That's self-critique. It's important. Judging is a good thing. And we have lots of professional judges too. What part of a professional judge could possibly be more anti-Jesus according to Christians who say don't judge? Well, we have thousands of judges, tens of thousands of judges. And this is a Christian nation? Wouldn't Jesus hate that? Judge not. Well, we know Jesus was wrong. It's good. It's good that Jesus was wrong, and we can say so because we're thinking human beings. Question number 2. If Jesus died on the cross, why worship a dead man? And part B of that question, it's a two-part question. If Jesus rose from the dead, then where was the sacrifice? I know a lot of atheists have heard these questions in tandem before, but a lot of Christians haven't and haven't considered them at all. And when I was a Christian, it occurred to me right away, but other Christians around me apparently didn't think about it much, or they kept that to themselves. I've always said it's a good thing that a priest can't read your mind, because otherwise you might actually have to start believing that shit. No way. Because thinking people shouldn't have to believe garbage like that. Or if you want to be nice, it's a mythology. Somebody made it up and had fun. It's a story we tell. Some people need an answer, an explanation to, that's fine for them. If they want to wallow in ignorance, that's fine. But we learn new facts every day that are verifiable. And that's very important. Verification is important. Ronald Reagan actually said, trust but verify, when he was talking about the Russians and the nuclear arms race and trying to verify that the Russians were reducing their arms in the nuclear arms department, and vice versa, getting the Russians to verify we were doing the same thing. And he said, trust but verify, which is a contradiction, of course. But we humans have to do that if we're going to exist in a society where we cooperate with other human beings. The other people are out there, so we have to learn to be able to cooperate and coexist. And verification is very important in that area. We now know. There are a lot of crazy claims out there, but it's important to verify things that are important. Okay. But if Jesus died, and of course Christians love the fact that Jesus died, so they have to stick with that part. Okay, Jesus died. Their Savior, their number one man, died. And now they want you to worship him along with them. They worship a dead man. Their favorite symbol is a cross, a torture device used to torture people to death. To this day, still, some people are crucified to death. It's amazing. Hard to believe. Of course, in the Philippines on Easter, they do that to themselves voluntarily, not to death. But torture and slavery, all these things are still with us in certain parts of the world. Not gone away yet. Christianity has not managed, and God has not managed to eradicate those things. They're still around. We human beings have to work on that. So Christians automatically say, no, Jesus isn't dead. He died, but he's no longer dead because he came back to life. He rose from the dead and now lives in heaven. So which is it? Life or death? Does he exist or not? Because if Jesus died, there's a sacrifice, I guess they could say, but you're worshiping a dead man. And if he came back, there can be no sacrifice. It's like Jesus turned his life on and off like a switch, like a light switch. He could do that because he was the Son of a God. And he could bring people back to life with just his touch. Anyway, when he was alive, committing all those miracles left and right, things that Christians will immediately tell you were not tricks, not sleight of hand, not hoaxes, not frauds, not made up, not pre-staged, pre-rehearsed. No, they will tell you Jesus actually did miracles in which he brought people back to life. And so that short little time in which they were dead is meaningless in the scheme of things. It was a break. There was no sacrifice when Jesus died because he was a God.